Hi, guys.
Thank you guys for being here. What a wonderful film. It was beautiful. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. We'll start with, I know you opened up by mentioning how you decided to do a film like this. Can you talk a little bit why you chose to go with leading a coming-of-age story with mixing it with the traditional dance from Georgia?
Good question. So I never knew what I was going to do when I was making this film, but pretty early on I decided to set it in the world of traditional Georgian dance for two reasons. One was that it really sort of showcases the traditional society in Georgia and the patriarchal structures. And secondly, it was a cinematic decision, actually, because I wanted to be able to tell a lot of things without dialogue and with body and glances and movement and things like that. And also I wanted to show Georgian dance to the world because it's really special and yeah, it's very, explosive.
Now, for our lead actors here, how did you two end up getting involved with this film?
Hello, everyone. So, actually, he found me on Instagram.
One good thing that came out of social media.
But when they offered me this role in the beginning, I said no several times, like probably 5 times. So then we meet and then we discuss and then we kind of like read his script and then he said, it's okay, let's make a teaser and after it you have like some time to think about it. So,
yeah, we did a short, like 10-minute version of the movie, some scenes 2 years ago to get financing, and you did that with us.
And then I had an audition with Bachin, so yeah.
Yeah, hi. I pretty much, it was pretty straightforward for me. I got a text, also on social media, I guess, but and they asked me to send my pictures, and at the time I was working at a pizzeria, and I was like, yeah, I definitely need this. I have to do this, and then I hear back. And I had to send a video, and they told me all about the topic and everything. And unfortunately, and this sounds strange, but I hesitated a lot because for some reason,
I mean, it's a very sensitive subject in Georgia, so that's why they both.
I thought that after this, I might not even get another project because the whole thing in Georgia is not okay. But then I decided that I had a chance to do something that could really make a difference and that say something meaningful through my acting. And I said, well, I have to do it now because then I felt a lot of responsibility on my shoulders. So I'm very happy that I agreed. And,
Me too.
Now, shooting a topic like this, especially on location in Georgia, can you talk a little bit about the difficulties?
Of course, yeah. So my parents are Georgian, but I was born and raised in Sweden, like I said before, and I don't think a Georgian director could have made this movie. But as I was doing research and I was meeting young people, interviewing them, I really felt it became almost an obligation for me to make this film because the film premiered in Georgia actually 3 days ago, and it's been a crazy week. I mean, you can Google after and just see everything that's been going on. It's been on all the international news media. There were, riots and demonstrations outside the theater. People were injured. They created what they called a corridor of shame, where the moviegoers had to walk through in order to see the film, and it was sad. We had 3 days of screenings, 6,000 tickets sold out in mere minutes. People really want to see this film in Georgia, but it was sad that they had to be brave and risk being tortured and harassed to go see a film. Fortunately, in Georgia, since the year 2000, it's legal to be LGBTQ+, and they're under protection of a minority. But it's not really implemented as it should be. They're sort of standing on two legs, the government. They get a lot of EU funding, and they want to move toward the West. But Russia is very, very influential, and they're occupying 25% of Georgian territory. And a lot of the people and these ultra-conservative groups demonstrating outside the cinemas are directly funded by Russia. And they also involve the Orthodox Church. And when the church gets involved, a lot of Georgians get involved. It's been a very tough week for us. Fortunately, you guys are not there at the moment, but it's been crazy. I mean, you can see, Google it, and you'll see how it was. What was your question?
So I was asking, how was it actually shooting?
Yeah. So the funny thing with this film is it's all been very fast. So 1 year ago today, we were still shooting this film. And then I finished the shoot in the end of November. I went back to Sweden, and then I edited in my kitchen the film for like 3 months, and then we got into Cannes. And then it's been like crazy since then, so I haven't really been able to process. But the actual shooting of the film was very difficult. We had to make up an alternate story of what we were doing. So we would say that we were making a film about a French tourist who comes to Georgia and falls in love with the Georgian culture. But inevitably, it sort of spread what we were doing, because we had to be honest with the municipality when we wanted locations. So we had to have security guards, and we got death threats, and we would lose locations in like 1 day's notice. So I had to be very creative. I couldn't really plan the movie as I would a normal film. I had like the beginning, the first scene. I had the middle, like when they're in the summer house, and I had the final scene. Everything in between, we sort of improvised. A lot of things that you see, I mean, everything is based on real stories from people that I interviewed, and the English cigarettes, they would talk about that on set, and then okay, let's have that in the movie. And so it was a very organic process filming, and also, a lot of the locations, like the restaurant was open while we were filming, and the scene with the prostitutes, they were working that night. We just came with our camera, so it was very sort of neo-realist way of making the film, and I think that also gave it its texture and this sort of documentary feel, because it's really like a film that sort of happened in the moment.
Now, when it comes to filming itself, how did you end up using, with lighting and everything, the techniques, because you have you seem to use a lot of natural light, a lot of the sunlight. Can you talk a little bit your lighting choices?
So the cinematographer of the film is a girl called SBIFF, and she's very, very talented. She's also Swedish, but she lives in Berlin. And what we did was, in Georgia, this orange light is actually very present because the street lights are orange. So we just sort of accentuated them a little more, and we wanted to give the film a warm. I never wanted to make I wanted the film to feel celebratory and warm and just loving because of all the bad stuff that was happening. I never wanted his character to ever question his sexuality. He just falls in love and he's happy. And also, I never wanted him to get hurt or anything in the movie. You can feel that there is, like a tension and like violence in the background, but I never wanted to have his character be part of that. So the whole idea for me with the film was I wanted it to feel like a warm embrace. Yeah.
Well, you've succeeded. Now, with learning the dances, how did that go about prepping to actually be able to do this actual dance for the film?
So I have like some dancing backgrounds because I used to study at the classical ballet school in Georgia. So I'm a kind of like more contemporary dancer. But we had like 3 months before we start filming to prepare like some choreography, like the Georgian ones, and it's like really tough, especially for me because like I'm like the thing that I'm doing is like more like kind of like soft and like like this more kind of ballet, and the Georgian dance is like really strict and you have to be like really masculine and macho to do to catch kind of like this attitude and like the feeling what is the Georgian dance. So it was like really hard because like 3 months is not enough, and we had kind of like 5 days in a week and like 7 hours per day, and he lost like 7 kilos, so it was like pretty intense. So.
This is how I normally look. That is not me. No. Yeah. It was pretty. Yeah, it was super tough. But I had like when we were kids, because in Georgia, when you're a kid, you kind of have to learn Georgian dance. Your grandma or your parents will just drag you to a class. And when I was a kid, I always thought, whenever am I going to need this? Like, this is not, I'm not going to be a dancer, no. And then 19, I'm like, okay, thanks, Grandma. And, but it was super tough. And I have a completely new appreciation of those dancers. And that's one thing this movie also does for a lot of Georgians, I think. That it shows them their own, like our own culture in a different light, a warm and embracing light, and you actually, fall in love with it differently, because for young people, traditions usually associated with bigotry and hatred, but this movie kind of shifts that in a way. Well, it did for me, because learning the dance and learning how hard it is and how challenging it all is, it kind of brought something new out for me.
I mean, being of Georgian heritage and living in another country, I had this very like rose-tinted view of Georgia. And I love the music and the dance and all these things. And I came to Georgia, and when I interviewed the kids, I would ask them, like, oh, you know that old song? Or like something. They would be like, oh, that sucks. Like, why are you talking about that song? And I realized that, for them, just like you said, it represented, oppression somehow. And they really turned their backs on it. And that was something I thought about a lot while making this film. And for me, that's my reason for making the film is the whole idea that some people sort of claim culture and a tradition and a notion of what it means to be Swedish or American, and you have to check these boxes, and like otherwise you're not a real Swedish person, or you're not a real Georgian. And I've always been like, who are you to tell me what I have to be or not to be considered Georgian? And that was my main goal with this film, to sort of reclaim the culture and tell the young people of Georgia that you're the future of Georgia, and you are the ones that are going to carry this culture onward. And it actually, we've created a movement in the region after this premiere. It's been crazy. Like there's even street art on the streets of Tbilisi from this film. When there's one beautiful one I saw today where they made him an angel with like rainbow arrows shooting at like an army of haters. Yeah.
Now, were any of the Georgian dance troupes involved in making of this film?
No, unfortunately not. We went to the big one, and they rejected us and kicked us out of the meeting, and it was terrible. But no, so they weren't involved. In our choreographer that we eventually got, he chose to remain anonymous in the end credits because of fear for their livelihood, and also a lot of the Georgian traditional songs that we have in the film, we wanted to use the original versions. They're folk songs, but people have made recordings of them, and all of them said no. So we had to re-record every song on our own, and a lot of those musicians agreed to record the songs, but they chose not to have their names in the credits, until some of them actually got back to us after we got into Cannes, and they were like, we changed our mind. We were like, it's too late. We made the credits already. Sorry.
Now, you do something unique with this love story that most other films would not do, is that you hold out on the kiss. They go way past the kissing part in their first love scene together, and they never actually touch lips, and then you bring it back. Was that by choice, or why did you do that?
Yeah, I think it's to me, when I wrote those scenes, it was realistic to me, because in that society, they would never kiss the first time, because that's considered gay. You know, like they want each other, but they would never, you know, be intimate in that way until he sort of acknowledges what happened and that that's okay with him, which gets to the Robin Honey scene when he does the dance and he's comfortable in showing him that he really wants him, and that's when they kiss the first time. So it was more, you know, it was more a question of what to me felt real in that environment.
Now, for the actors, what is it like for you to be put in a film like this? For you, it's your first film, which let's give them a round of applause, because for a first time out there, it's amazing.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about how important for you personally it is to be in this film now that you've seen it?
So for me, it was really important, because like after all this like discussion with my friends and with my family, when I decided to kind of like be the part of this project, I also like find out this thing that I have like some power, because now I really can change something, and now I really can change some people's mind, because I feel that I have like some tools now. And when I found out that the thing, I was like really impressed, and I was like really happy, because Georgia really needs like kind of like new blood, and we really need like some changes. So it was like really, really important for me to kind of like do this project. So, and of course, like I was kind of like dreaming to be an actor, but when I applied my papers in Theater and Film University in Georgia, they reject me. And I was like really I had like really long depression, and I was like thinking, okay, I'm not good enough, so maybe I have to kind of, I don't know, like working in a bars, or like, I don't know, doing some other works. But yeah, it was kind of like my dream. But then when we meet and when we start working, it was kind of like, I start like seeing my future. Okay, so maybe they were wrong, and that's my thing, and I have to do it. And yeah, and now I'm kind of like thinking that I have to do both, like dancing and also like acting. So it was kind of like really good beginning to my career.
A very good one.
Yeah.
I think so.
And Bachi, do you want to talk a little bit about how it is for you?
Well, it's been a crazy year actually, and it really like turned my life upside down. This whole project. It's my first film. I used to work at a theater, but theaters in Georgia, like a lot of things, are very old-fashioned and desperately in need for something new and fresh to happen, but it doesn't happen. It's just, and every time someone like Levan comes along, for instance, they reject it because you don't know why, because of fear, I guess, of giving up their titles or powers or whatever. But yeah, when this film came up, I was in a very bad place, because I felt that I didn't have a place in theater, and I felt that if I went down this road, that would be the end, and I was already fine with that. But with this project, I kind of have hope that in Georgia and in my life personally, some things will come up, and the future seems a little brighter now for me. And this film has done a lot more than just has been a great start for a career. It's personally just I grew so much with this, and yeah, I'm just eternally grateful just to be here. It's incredible for me.
Now, another wonderful aspect of the film is actually the family dynamics in the film, because every family has its issues that it's going through, but it always shines through that their love is the most important thing, no matter what. Can you talk a little bit about the choice of adding that into the film and having those families? I
don't like when things get too dark, because I think it's so dark in the world as it is, and I didn't want to make, you know, his family situation terrible. So, I mean, it was a natural choice. And also, it was based on research. I mean, I met this kid who was a Georgian dancer who lived with his grandma and his mother, and they had that dynamic. And they, you know, he had this sort of burden of keeping the tradition alive. And I thought that was, you know, it was, I liked it. It felt warm and sweet, and I added it to his character. But I think for me, a lot of the choices with his story were to just sort of place him in the shoes of a regular Georgian kid, because a lot of them live, you know, they live intergenerationally in Georgia because you can't afford to move, and you can't, you know, maybe you'll move if you get married, but otherwise you're at home. If you remain like a spinster, you're at home until, you know, the end. So you know, it was just, again, based on research and based on how it really is in Georgia, you know, and how they live. So yeah.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about your choice of the ending of the film. It's amazing because he goes through the dance. You could end it where he makes it and gets on that, or you could give him his own choice and let him be free with the dance. And it really opens up, closes it out nicely. Can you talk a little bit about that choice of having him be able to dance through all that?
Sure. So to me, the love story in the film was always just a catalyst for him to, you know, discover his truth and his place in Georgian society, and for him to, you know, gain the confidence to tell everybody to go F off. Like, so that's what he does in the end, and I think that sort of is part of the, like, sort of, I mean, we've been in festivals all over the world at this point, and the universal aspect of the film is, like, I think everybody has that desire to sort of break free, and everybody has, you know, a lot of people are living their lives not for themselves, but for what other people think about them. And I think that's why that scene is so strong and powerful, because he's like, okay, I don't care anymore. I'm gonna just do what I want to do. So I don't think he ever goes to that audition thinking that he's gonna, he goes there to, you know, do his thing and, you know, take a bow in the end and go away. And I like the ending personally. It's sort of bittersweet because I always myself think of, you know, what's going to happen to him. I don't know, but I think he'll be good. Yeah, I hope so.
Can we talk a little bit about how you went about shooting the dance scenes? Because it is quite amazing, and you're bringing a whole new tradition of dance to wide masses. And so can you talk a little bit about how you shot those?
Yeah, so when I did that short 10-minute teaser to get money, I did it on my own little system camera, like a Canon, and I got very close to him, and I really liked how that looked. And so when I chose the cinematographer, I chose somebody that I thought could, you know, keep that feeling. And so it was a conscious choice always to come really near and to be very close to him at all times. And really, I mean, the whole movie is very subjective through his point of view. And I with the dance, I really wanted to come close. We don't have a lot of wide shots in the dance scenes, and that's also due to financial constraints, because we made this movie for like 200,000 euros. So we couldn't light a big room and back the camera up too much, but it really works, because I feel, I hope you guys think so too, because the closeness is something that I think really brings an intensity to the scenes, and that it's handheld. But it's really difficult to film dance scenes like this handheld and not on a steady. It's super difficult, because you have to run around, and it's really tricky, and also with such shallow focus, like, it's super tricky.
Well, you did a wonderful job. Thank you three for being here.
Thank you so much. Thank you.